Hey, Ankur, thank you for coming in. You've done just a remarkable contributions over decades and transformation, entrepreneurship. I mean, you fit it all, right? In research, but also in creating solutions that are being adopted globally. And they're continuing to do this sort of entrepreneurship journey, which means you're doing translational work, translating into solutions that can scale globally. And of course, you've got the attention of Microsoft and all of your work because it's so marvelous. So thank you for coming in and doing this interview with me.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
the
for the. So Anchor, what were maybe two or three inflection points in your life that made this wonderful career? And it could have been something when you were 3 or 5 years old, inside the family, outside the family, in school, outside of school, different jobs that you had. There's got to be those really major moments that really propelled you into work like you're doing today.
That's an
That's a
interesting question.
question.
I think
In
reflecting
reflecting
on my career
career
in
in
that
that
span,
part,
I would
I
say
would
there
say
are
there's
four
four
major
major
action
action
points.
points.
The
The
first one
first one
was
was
learning
learning
to
to
innovate
innovate.
as being a central tenet, ever since growing up. Second one, I would say, is about um, how to innovate once you learn to innovate, how do you then innovate with humility to create a meaningful impact, right? And then it kind of goes on from there. Um, so the first inflection point really during my career was uh, embracing academia and the breakthrough research opportunities that I got at top industry research labs all over the world. I've always been deeply passionate about solving complex problems, and which led me to pursue advanced degrees in computer science. My time at university was pivotal, particularly during my PhD, where I focused on AI and machine learning way before it became this cool now, right? The research I conducted during that period was groundbreaking and generated significant recognition, but it also instilled in me a strong foundation for data science and AI. Spending time in industry research labs such as IBM and Microsoft Research also ignited my passion for using data to drive meaningful insights and solutions, and not just be constrained to new algorithm development. One valuable lesson I feel I learned was how to innovate with AI researchers collaboratively, as well as with software engineers, and working together to create value that can impact millions was very interesting for me to learn in my early career and early days. I remember those days when pattern recognition and AI was significantly more theoretical. When if you had to publish a paper in a top conference or a journal, you had to have significant advancement and theoretical proof of your algorithm and technology working. And big data and data mining and the database communities were just starting to come together to solve scale problems for machine learning, etc. So that was my first sort of learning to innovate phase, embracing academia. And then from there, the second inflection point was when learned that innovating with humility for meaningful impact is more important than just learning to innovate. So when I transitioned my career from academic research to translational research with industry, uh, this happened after getting tenure at the University of Washington and doing years of teaching and research. I felt a strong urge to apply my theoretical knowledge to real world problems in domains like healthcare, environment, education. I literally pivoted my entire research center to focus on societal impact. Um, and we opened our doors to working closely with industry and health systems and trained a whole generation of grad students in working hand in hand with seasoned engineers who were used to shipping products as their main job. This experience was transformative for me because it allowed me to see the real world impact of data science and machine learning. I would say at least a decade, if not 5 years before many people woke up to that. And when you wake up at 5 a.m. to be by the bedside of a patient with heart failure, along with your cardiologist collaborator, and both of you are in that room trying to figure out the risk score of the likelihood of this patient, having another episode if they were discharged from the hospital because of the decision that the cardiologist caregiver is making. It instills a huge sense of humility and gratitude for the patience and dedication it takes to save a life, right? And that inflection point just reinforced my belief in the importance of bridging the gap between academic research and practical applications. And it significantly shaped my vision for my own future endeavors. That, I think, led to sort of the third inflection point for me, where I realized that only relentless innovation can scale, right? And this was founding of my first big startup in healthcare called CueZen. It was motivated by personal experiences and a desire to make difference in healthcare. But under my leadership at CueZen, we developed an advanced predictive analytics platform that significantly improved patient outcomes, but also reduced operational costs for the healthcare systems. And it marked a significant milestone in my personal career, showcasing the potential that I can generate to demonstrate that entrepreneurial innovation can coexist with academic excellence together. And today, I would say I'm at the fourth inflection point of my career where I'm realizing that it takes a village. Relentless innovation can take you from innovation to scale, but it takes a village uh, for uh, for that innovation to reach national scale, to reach millions. It takes more than technology. I'm today, building from the learnings of CueZen. I'm involved I'm the CEO of a new venture called CueZen. This venture represents a new frontier. We are focusing on harnessing the power of AI and data for personalized experiences and insights for every individual care recipient. I'll be happy to talk about more.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So there's a lot to unpack here because from very early on, you recognize the value of having a good academic sort of background, and especially when focused on science and innovation. And then you realize, this translational aspect and the importance of that, and working with people who are practically developing solutions. You developed those kind of communities. And then you had this really successful startup called CueZen, which it was acquired by Providence Health Systems in 2021. And then you subsequently founded this CueZen startup. So it's a remarkable journey. But early on, your inspiration to really study science and get into this area, that from your parents or from an early teacher, mentor? Or was just natural curiosity?
I would say it was, both my parents are engineers,
Oh,
and conversations in our home would always be a blend of engineering problem solving and how engineering talent often get constrained by bureaucratic oversights that that limit the pace of innovation. So in some sense, uh, I got I got an art, and even before that, before like my parents, my grandfather was an extremely innovative entrepreneur who created significant community impact where we grew up, but then lost much of his fortune due to lack of governance, so to say. And many of those experiences had shaped my parents, and then they ended up shaping me. And as I moved to the US to pursue academic excellence in research, to follow in the footsteps of my parents, I realized the tremendous potential that United States as a land of opportunity awards for entrepreneurship and innovation to be combined with rigor and expertise. And that I think together, made me value the blend between academic excellence and entrepreneurial risk taking.
Yeah, okay, that's really fascinating. So entrepreneurship actually runs in your family, and then the engineering, the precision of engineering, and engineering is really focused on practical solutions, right? So
Yeah.
taking research and applying it for scalable solutions. So you have that element. And so you have appreciation of the academic side, but you have appreciation of the practicality side and the entrepreneurship side because it's in your family.
Yeah.
And in your early studies, then, what was the arc of the different kind of degrees you got, and the focus, and your, recognized top authority in the integration of data science and AI and analytics with healthcare? So, what was that journey to shape you to focus in the healthcare area?
So around 2005, 2006, uh, I faced certain, personal experiences in my own family where I started, in some sense, introspecting and questioning the the need for uh, designing new machine learning AI algorithms for for the good of human society, right? And really trying to understand how all this knowledge that I had gained and the power of sort of being a free researcher in a US academic system, you know, with great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility, as they say. And somewhere I felt the burden of that responsibility to use all the wonderful machine learning algorithms that we were developing as a community, and bring that tremendous advancement to serve society at large. So I founded the first Center for Data Science for Societal Impact in the world within the ecosystems of University of Washington, and started focusing on health, environment, and education as three focus areas. Got tremendous support from colleagues within the university community, and we literally started collaborating with industry in order to then understand the problems that these domains are looking to solve with predictive analytics and with AI. And so, I would say, instead of focusing on, say, an academic grant from the federal government to do more theoretical or pure research, we would then create a project management office, more like a consulting organization, and bring in industrial collaborators to tell us what their real problems were, and then solve those problems in a very tight SLA, and sort of commitments, much like an industry sort of software development arm would do, but still stay focused on the rigor of what an academia provides. And that blend really, helped me create that arc of translational research from core innovation to applied innovation.
Yeah, then I mean, you have this social impact side of you, and healthcare is clearly an area to do social impact. So, yeah, taking research, translating it, creating solutions, scaling those solutions. But if you address healthcare, which you are, then that's definitely a global issue and a major challenge. It definitely aligns with the Sustainable Development Goals, with the UN. It would align with the Gates Foundation, of course. And the University of Washington, I can see that the close proximity to all of those different companies as well. It's such a convergence and a confluence of thinking in a positive direction. And to understand now, you are one of the pioneers and realizing, let's take this translational work and do it for impact in a positive way. So that's a fascinating career arc and really decades ahead of anybody else. Because I do a lot of these interviews, and then your realization to do this in a very thoughtful and purposeful way is really commendable. So thank you for all of that contribution. So you're doing all of this work. You're definitely innovating in so many different ways, and you're doing it on the research side, but through translation, and you're doing all of these relationships to take it to fruition. What was the catalyst for you to create that first company? Because that's a leap to say, you know what, I'm doing this work, because you could always do it in conjunction with industry and sort of pass it to industry directly. There's a different kind of mindset to say, I'm going to start a company and I'm going to be an entrepreneur because that's a very, I'm an investor and I'm an entrepreneur as well. So it's kind of a very fragile existence, right? It's a roller coaster, and you definitely have to meet ongoing demands and the environment and the forces of where you could fail, right? Or it's going to go. And they're constantly in flux. So that's a big step. So what was that like to cross that chasm to actually do a startup?
Yeah. One of the main reasons of spinning out some of that research into a startup and really do it in the startup environment rather than do it in the university environment was I can articulate that in three major sort of decision points, right? One, just from a compliance and governance perspective, it is much easier to be a startup and deploy solutions with industry partners or customers, right? Than be a university researcher and try to deploy things in production, right? That's just not something that universities and researchers are traditionally good at, right? So having a company and having an entrepreneurial sort of startup allowed me the freedom to execute and actually deploy some of the predictive models that we happen to license out of the University of Washington. Second reason was, as I said, the inflection point was relentless innovation leads to scale, right? So in order to have that relentless innovation engine working for the service of customers and real patients requires capital, requires investment, requires a team of stellar engineers, data scientists, experts in customer success and finance and so the whole shebang of what it takes to create a successful company out of such ventures, right? And to date, I don't really know of any good examples of being able to successfully do that just within the university setting, right? The third really is, as you mentioned briefly earlier, the Pacific Northwest, Seattle ecosystem is just fantastic for that kind of risk taking, right? I mean, we got Boeing started here, we got Microsoft started here, we Amazon scaled up and started here. So it's just like there is so much grassroots level of advice and mentorship that is available from the ecosystem and community over here, that every person that I talk to encouraged me to just dive deep into this and make the jump and learn to believe in myself, uh, and take appropriate risks in order to create something. Nothing venture, nothing gain.
I mean, you also have the Washington Global Health Alliance. Did you ever work with them or Mauricio Vecchione? Because he used to run the Global Good Lab for Bill Gates for quite a number of years, and now he's at the Teredesai Institute for Biomedical Innovation. He's their chief innovation officer, and he has his own fund called the.
I will, yeah, certainly. I haven't crossed paths yet, but certainly will look them up and connect.
I mean, I can do the connection. So these interviews are almost like live brainstorming. If I have these relationships, happy afterwards connect you up with these remarkable folks as well. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm work with the ACM. I'm on their board, and also I work with IEEE. And there is a big gap to go from research into starting a company and being successful at it as well. I mean, you were acquired by Providence Health Systems in 2021, and you founded your company in 2015. So that's a pretty short time frame to have an exit. Before we move on to your current company, and then I want to talk about some trends that you see and your views on those trends. What were the lessons that you learned? I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm also an investor. And there's this idea of the 9 levels of investment readiness level, things like, do you have problem solution fit? Do you have problem market fit? Do you have an MVP? Do you have validation from customers? Do you have revenue validation? What does your business model look like? What is the framework of this operation? Did you go through these kind of very defined steps? And then what your lessons that really created your success? Was your ability to be agile, as you indicated, continually innovating? Was it the kind of the mindset within your team? Was it a combination of that? Was it having just great IP as well that was defensible and you were willing to continually iterate on that IP, and you have to often pivot in some way as you're redefining and sort of making sure that product market fit is scalable and is revenue positive, and you do have real customers and you're able to retain them and also grow your customer base. I mean, there's a lot of these questions that come about when you do a startup. What were those key factors that created your success in that first startup?
I think that there's a lot to, talk about on what those learnings were and what created that success. But it's, if I was to summarize the essence of it, it comes down to, again, 2 or 3 very fundamental principles. The first one is I was, and I continue to be extremely blessed by the team and the people that believe in my vision to transform healthcare with AI and machine learning at scale, right? If it wasn't for the support and the confidence, where many of these talented individuals came together to embark on this mission of combining the power of AI, the health data, and the cloud together to shape a product that would then, be used by tens of health systems globally, and day in and day out show up in order to believe in that vision and execute on that mission. I don't think we would be anywhere as successful as we were. The second is really the problem market fit more than the product market fit. Uh, you know, it was 2015, the world was still figuring out how to deploy health and AI use cases on the cloud. Majority of the data was still locked on-prem, right? Contained within electronic health records or not being captured at all because, as you well know, only 10% of any patient's data about them is inside a health record. And even that is for very, very much the purpose of billing and reimbursement. So having that problem market fit where we could go out to the community of healthcare professionals and convince them that their their time and investment in these technologies is going to bear fruit in operational savings, in improving outcomes, and making sure that the amount of value that they can deliver back to their patients is going to be significant, led to sort of the second success factor, the second factor for success, right? I would say the third key ingredient was really making sure that uh, you provide all of it in a package that you can call a product and slowly transform that journey from a problem market fit to a product market fit before you start sort of scaling out. So that was a very important lesson that we learned in our first startup, and we have been at length addressing that problem market fit to product market fit now, going into CueZen and the new way of what we are trying to do for healthcare AI.
So that's really fascinating. Now let's get into CueZen, and you have a mission to drive AI-driven personalized care, so being personalized with precision care at national scale. And you've got this personalized recommendation engine that powers numerous behavior change solutions for wellness and sleep. So that's a pretty broad kind of spectrum to personalize, and I would say precision chronic condition management. And I think it's really interesting that you're embedded into things like the NHS, the Ministry of Health Singapore, Tata in India. Tata's huge, right? So, and within digital therapy solutions in the US. And then in my open brainstorming here, I think you would fit what Stephen Chaya is doing with J&B Medical, because he's scaling into things like population health. And I think you'd be interested to see what you're doing. And in fact, I'm going to be with them in a few weeks, and I'll talk about what you're doing, and we'll see if there's enough of a fit. I'll do an introduction to what he's doing, but I think, and he has 18 medical companies, some of them are the largest in particular areas of the medical space, right? And he fits the provider, the payer, the consumer, he's across all of those. Makes sense in some way and quite unique in that way. So I think you got a great piece. that he'd be interested in. So let's talk more about CueZen and what you hope to do currently, and maybe you can get into more detail. But what does this mean? And empowering numerous behavior change solutions for wellness, to sleep, and personalized chronic condition management. Can you give me some maybe specific use cases where people in the audience will say, "Oh, I get that. I can see what that does."
So, well, I mean, imagine if you could provide personalized, um, evidence-based interventions for driving healthy behavior changes in a large population at nation scale, right? And we're not talking hundreds, we're not talking thousands, we're talking millions, right? At the same time, according to Milken, uh, Michelson, the leader of the World Health Organization Division for Chronic Conditions, every 2 seconds, someone under the age of 70 is dying from a non-communicable disease. This also has an increased toll on how people weather serious infections, as we witnessed during the COVID-19 pandemic recently. So, contrary to popular belief, these lifestyle diseases are not mainly a problem for wealthy countries. In fact, 86% of global premature NCD deaths happen in low and lower middle income populations, right? So why is this a problem and why is it being ignored? I personally think that over the last 200 years, modern medicine has been all about standardizing the standard of care across infections, diseases, ailments, you name it, right? Ever since sort of the Crimean War and Florence Nightingale's efforts to bring about standardization using statistics, this has been going on, right? And it's great. It's brought us to where we are. But I believe that the next few decades, if not more, will be all about personalizing that standard of care for each individual on the planet. And that's where CueZen comes in. CueZen aims to revolutionize how we use AI and data to enhance human decision making and patient engagement. We are for the first time bringing together this power of algorithmic automation of AI with the Nobel Prize winning nudge theory, first proposed by two well-known behavioral economists, Professor Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein. And we are bringing that to healthcare. And at CueZen, we leverage generative AI, and whether you call it generative AI or you call it AI, right? Tomato at this point. We provide personalized, evidence-based interventions that are human approved. So clinician, physician, caregiver approved to drive healthy behavior changes in consumer patients. So I'm specifically pointing out that we are in the consumer space in that sense, ultimately improving health outcomes, right? Our technology integrates various data sources, including wearable device sensors, self-reported conditions, clinical records, to offer really customized healthcare pathways for patients to self-manage and change behaviors. This is powered by a single product that we have created for, we call it the Nudge Stream Personalization Platform, that enhances the consumer patient's digital experiences by helping members adhere to care plans prescribed by their caregivers, facilitating positive lifestyle changes, positive changes on health behaviors, and to do this at national scale for millions is what CueZen is all about.
So that's interesting. So in fact, you'd be interested in the announcements then at the Apple WWDC conference this week, right? Because they're integrating more, or the thought is, I guess I won't know because we're doing the interview, I'd have to check, but the thought is they're going to do much more integration of AI into all of their products, which will then marry well into what you're doing because you created a platform, right? For working with all of these different sensors and IoT things that are out there. And as you indicated, you pointed to, like sensors. In fact, I use my sleep and analytics that come from my watch every day, right, to kind of fine tune. But you would feed in that data and scores of other pieces of data to, or many data sources to provide a regimen to help people have better wellness overall, right? Yeah, kind of a 360 holistic health system, right? So,
yeah, in fact, I would argue, Stephen, that more than many data sources, the power of AI and what CueZen is leveraging is the the idea that a consumer patient is not siloed by disease conditions or by multiple digital therapeutic apps, right? So you just gave a great example about your sleep, and that's something that you monitor on a daily basis, right? But it, you know that your sleep is not one individual problem slash issue that you are trying to address, right? And how you behave during the day, during the week, during the month, everything from your um, sort of pre-existing problems slash genetic history to your daily micro actions, such as being sedentary or taking a little walk, to engaging in social exercise or social sort of context with your family and friends, all makes Stephen the person that he is, and that affects your sleep, and that affects your sleep score, right? So imagine a technology that could nudge you differently from the way it is nudging me, but both of us have the same objective of improving our sleep and making sure that our body is well rested so that we can then go out and change the world every day, right? That nudge that goes out to you versus the one that goes out to me has to be completely personal, personal in its content, personal in the choice of the things that it's telling you to do or telling me to do, and personal in the time of day or day of week when it is telling me to do what to do, and in the format in which it is getting delivered, either through an app or through an email or through a message, right? Or through a video or through a survey that it's asking your question and getting your feedback into it, or even through a conversational AI agent like this that's just trying to encourage you to think a little bit about the sleep you had last night. So all these modalities is what makes the problem very interesting and at the same time complex. Yet just wanted to note that it's not the huge amount of integration of data that is also possible. It's these many different small things that you can do, even with one or two data sources, as long as you focus on the multitude modal, sort of multimodal aspect of that signal that is coming from an individual in their daily lifestyle, right?
Yeah, it's a really complex matrix, and you're able to simplify that complex matrix or that complexity to something that makes sense, is personal to me. Like it's adapted to my behaviors and the things I do, and it coaxes me, as you said, gently nudges me in the right direction, because my particular profile is going to be different from my friend's profile or somebody else on the other side of the planet. It doesn't matter who it is. Even if you had a twin, your profile is still going to be different, right? So,
Exactly.
I love the idea, and you executed. And that's why you got NHS and Ministry of Health Singapore and Tata India and so on. Now that I have a better understand what you're doing, I can think of maybe like 100 people that I should introduce you to to further scale what you're doing. Okay, let's now take this conversation into trends. You saw the release a few weeks ago of ChatGPT Omni, and that capability is now available with the Microsoft Azure AI platform, right? Because they've now onboarded Mistral and the Llama 3's there, and of course OpenAI tech is there. So they're trying to make it so that you can choose the things that work for you. And Omni, I thought when they released it, and Gemini, but Omni because it came out really initially, I thought it was really interesting, right? Because they've integrated everything into one model, which makes it more efficient. So it doesn't have to call out a particular other model to do something. It's multimodal, but it's inherently multimodal, so it makes it much more efficient, reduces the latency time. The fact that it has this vision component and integrated with audio and everything else. And so what are your views on that and how it's going to scale what you're doing this year? And then if we were to look 1 year from now, what will that look like? Because there'll be something else out, right? And I get the sense it's not going to be called GPT-5. It'll become something like GPT Next or something like that, right? They want to avoid this kind of numbering system. But if I look back a year before, right? A year before, there was no automatic music generation. It just didn't exist. And then Sona came out. And then you have UDIO, and I mean, it generates music and it does everything. I saw this research report from Microsoft with VASA 1. And I was like, wow, that's incredible, right? And then when I saw Sora come out with this really photorealistic video generation, and then I saw Omni come out. But let's play credit to Microsoft and 5.3, which is a very small model, and it's incredible. There's just all these companies are doing just amazing things. What do you think is going to be? What this is going to look like at the end of this year? Because people are going to start using it, right? And then let's go 1 year from now, because all of this has happened within a year. What is going to look like a year from now? And then there's this idea that maybe we're going to have AGI even sometime next year. But I'm not talking the science fiction AGI. I'm going to constrain it and say, hey, it does everything a human can do, and some things even better, right?
So I have a very pragmatic yet yet aspirational viewpoint on these trends. Everything you said and described is bound to happen. Today, we are in an age where if we can dream it, we can make it happen. The real work is in making sure that what it does in a fair, responsible way, such that it truly serves the people that it was designed to serve without causing any harm at a societal level. So I could rattle off all the different recent trends that you talked about very nicely just now. Everything from small models, small specialized models powered by transformer architectures, which are then powered by new advances in platforms like Azure that then are very agile and scale up to decentralized, distributed, federated learning capabilities of these models where data privacy is preserved and maintained, all the way to transformational chip architectures that are more energy efficient, more sustainable, because, at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay the light bill here, right? And so we could talk about all of that, right? Or we could talk about the recent trends and advances, the way I see the world 1 year from now, applied to this field of artificial intelligence and recommendation systems, applied to health and wellness, which is really all I can comment on, because that's what I think about day in and day out, right? And I see that the day is near when, um, you know, again, I always think of life in the 2 by 2 matrix format when it comes to recent advances, right? And the framework that I use for myself in this decision-making process is, what are the advances? So if the y-axis is, you know, easy for AI, and the top of the axis is difficult for AI, and if the x-axis is easy for humans and the far end of that axis is difficult for humans, right? Today, and in another 6 months or so, right, we are still at that easy for humans, easy for AI quadrant, where majority of the applications and use cases are sort of helping us achieve productivity gains, achieve results of automation at scale, where it's easy to train an AI model on a job that was easy for a human to do, right? How do we bring about transformational technology change as well as societal impact such that AI can solve some of the use cases that are easy for AI to solve, but difficult for humans to solve? And what you're observing in GPT 4.0, like the 4O model that you just mentioned, for example, and some of the other technologies, is it is difficult for humans to take input from multimodal data across, this data integration problem. And then if humans had enough time to synthesize all these signals and make a decision, they would. But AI automation finds it much more easy. It's easy for AI to do that and then provide a canned output for a human. So the validation of that is still with a human, and then you can call it a great output, right? The real holy grail, which I think we are quite a few years away from, is difficult for humans, difficult for AI, right? That requires significant changes in compute, significant changes in regulatory frameworks, significant changes in compliance, significant changes in underlying architectures of AI and machine learning, where many things have to come in order to solve for some of those, difficult use cases, right? Uh, Bringing the conversation back to a recommendation system and health and wellness, there are some very exciting things around the corner. Significant advancement in applications, for example, graph neural networks within recommendation systems and knowledge graphs have now enabled the application of retrieval augmented generation, as you know, for constraining and allowing natural language processing engines like large language models to actually humans in that conversational aspect in order to then seek coaching or seek health advice. So I see increased advances in playing uh, people to find it easier to interact with agents, which still have a caregiver in the back in order to make sure that the conversations slash decision process go well. I also think that uh, context awareness and the tools that we use in order to make AI model more situational and aware of an individual human, like about so far, will be cheaper. They'll be easier. They'll be more widely adopted and applicable. And we ourselves at CueZen are taking great advances. We recently have a paper accepted at a top learning AI conference called ACM KDD, which you may be aware of. And in Barcelona in August, we would be presenting the results of this groundbreaking technology, which powers out an engine, right? But if you take all that back, one more really needed is close attention to the the data and the hidden biases that come in the decision making process. And I see increased advancements in responsible AI, in privacy preserving AI that will unlock the true potential of these technologies that are now becoming more commercially available.
That's really fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to this paper. Is there any possibility that they could point to some future site where in your profile, so update your profile so that people could look at your profile and find that paper when it is released? And it could be just a holding place, and you can put a date, say at this location at a certain date, this full paper. Maybe you could just put
That's a great suggestion.
no. So this is like a living document. I'd be really interested to look at that paper. And the reason is that you're talking, you're talking about retrieval augmented generation, but there's really a lot of work also on the in context kind of real time adaptability and being able to kind of tune it even at that stage, which it makes it even more friendly from a user standpoint, right? And there's some papers being released in that area. And then also this idea of episodic, even semantic memory kind of capability and planning and putting more planning elements. And then also this whole agent explosion, right? Though the multimodal is kind of embracing or integrating that agent capability really into making it sort of innate into the model itself. So I think all of this are really interesting. Anything that you can point to and you want to add to your profile, please do. And I think our audience would just love it. It's including future points, right? So we're down to the last few minutes of our interview. I realized that we could probably go for half a day because your work is just fascinating. Can you describe maybe some final recommendations to the audience and or questions you want to leave for the audience? And that's the final question.
So thank you, Stephen, for giving me this opportunity to have a great discussion with you. I would pose you a question first, and then we'll let the audience participate on this. Imagine, and my question really is like, imagine if I asked you for $100 each year starting today, and I gave you a guarantee that I can give you back $150,000 in just 7 years. Would you take that deal?
Or Jensen Wong saying in 10 years, it's a million times scaling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the answer, of course, clearly with Jensen and others out there, and they can prove it, right? They've got past evidence, and the history is there. Yeah, I think the entire audience will say yes. I mean,
Yes. Yes. So if we like that deal, right, uh, we need to think about that deal in a different context. And that context is, if today the world leaders who are, who are very much responsible for nation scale populations, who are responsible for the health of every citizen of the United States, right? Uh, if I could tell you that globally, by investing an additional $18 billion per year into uh, measures that could generate net economic benefit of $2.7 trillion over the next 7 years, which is our ratio of $100 to 15,000, right? It would literally solve the problem of low GDP growth of countries with aging populations and reduce the burden of disease and create what I like to call as hundreds of blooming blue zones all over the world, right? Where people live longer, live healthier as they approach their golden years. So the question to the audience really is, think about the transformational technology and the power of AI with human in the loop that they are working on uh, in order to invest together this additional $18 billion per year in order to generate that $2.7 trillion outcome over the next 7 years, which the World Health Organization, and these are not numbers I'm making up, these are numbers from the World Health Organization, where they have declared that if we are able to focus and invest and sustain this type of growth in chronic diseases, in medication adherence, in patient compliance, by engaging individual consumer patients into this ecosystem, by creating systems that allow for health systems to engage individual patients, we will have a simply transformational effect on economies of the whole world in just 7 years. So as AI is making these trends and growth, there is a huge movement afoot in healthcare to transform health with this AI. And personally, I am excited about that future and the role that organizations like CueZen and academia like University of Washington can play in that by making simple choices, by helping people make simple choices that can change everyone's lives one nudge at a time.
You know, those are lovely thoughts to leave to the audience, and a challenge as well. So the audience should be putting up their hands and say, yes, I'm in. I'm going to support this. And a lot of my audience are CEOs, so they can drive the levers, right?
Right.
To get the adoption.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Ankur, thank you for coming in. I really enjoyed our time together. You're just a marvelous contributor. You've got a great history. You're continuing this global impact and scaling it as well in a multiplier way. So really appreciate you and all of the contributions you're doing. And thanks for coming in and sharing so many different areas with our audience.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.